All right, well, welcome back. Writing the Flutter app, part two. There's some stuff that we did yesterday that I didn't film, partially because my son was still awake and running around and making noise. And when he finally did go down, he was still pretty fussy, and I wasn't sure if he would be screaming or anything. So um, he just was up and in his crib. He's kind of in that state right now, to be honest. So if you hear him on the monitor, I'm in charge of watching him right now. But point is that work was done. Last we left off, we had a grid of it was a 3 column layout with cards, and they had a yellow background. And I was getting the data from the API and just using the strings that were returned as output to fill in that page. So yesterday we made some changes. I was able to get the images correctly set up the way they wanted. Now they don't look great, but they look pretty close to how they're supposed to in the example that we were given. And I thought I'd just cover some of the changes, right? So here's what we ended up with from the API. And the ratios might not be exactly right. And again, the images are, I think it's mainly the box width and height are not quite what they have in theirs, but it's pretty close. Of course, I wasn't given specific parameters, so it's kind of up to the student at that point. Also made some changes in our fetch. I had originally started with something like this, with the map, using a map and toList for the results to create characters from the JSON parse or decode, so that all the variables could be fed in. But that if you tie the map onto this specifically, even though it's this here, something happens and it's no longer a list of characters, even though you generate characters from the map. It ends up being a list dynamic, and of course with the type scripting with darts typing, it didn't meet this specification any longer, and it would break. So that's where we were originally just setting everything out. But I got with my cohort and we were talking about it, and I tried some of their code, and it seems that you just need this part here. As long as you decode the characters into a list, you're then able to act on it appropriately. And you need the toList because otherwise you get a map. So that was a change we made. I liked this going into it. Of course, this is where I ended up because I wanted to make sure I could take control of the typing of everything, and I probably could have done that here as well. But this worked out, and for readability, for someone coming back into it, excuse me, it probably would look better, and I might add this back on there, to be honest. Just change it back. All right. Anyway, point is that got changed. This was a debug check just to see. So we didn't need that anymore since we've got all the data now. We were doing this. We are still doing the grid. This is the spacing in between the lines, or in between the squares. So these were all pretty close before. Everything was right up next to each other. In their example, there's some spacing. Again, the aspect ratio may be a little off. And the cross count is how many columns you want. Now we were doing the card, like I said, with the color and the children being this center option, which put everything just in the middle of the card. It's learning learning Flutter is kind of like having to relearn HTML, JavaScript, and well, rather TypeScript maybe, and CSS all in one, because you can't just say, I can't just like give a component a class and put some styling on that class. Like, if the child is just a text element, then the text element has a string as input, and then it has a styling, and each styling has a parameter, and each parameter has a specific class. Like, this is the first one I see where I can just, and this is just a double. It wanted a double here, but man, the breakdown of all the different classes for each thing is kind of daunting. So this grid tile, excuse me, is now the new object we're creating with our item builder. The grid tile has a header, a footer, and a child, and there might be one other. I can probably just pull it up right here. I can close that. I probably don't need this either. So here we go. Right, so it has a key. I still haven't really messed with any of the keys. I'm assuming it's kind of like React, where each element, if you have a list, it wants a unique key for each item in the list for re-rendering, to help aid that process and speed that up. Haven't injected a key into any of this yet, so it's been working without it. Of course, you can see the required is the widget child. So we have a child of text. I guess I can just stick to this over here. Text has all these parameters. Potentially you can put anything with a question mark is optional. So the string is the data primarily that you're going to put in there, and that's the name. That's what you see in white. Of course, I thought it was strange. It's strange here. I can say white, but I have to have this. You see that? Like, I have to give it an opacity. I have to say a width something here, and it's kind of frustrating in that regard. I haven't tried value yet. Mostly I'm saying like with alpha, with opacity, something like that. We could try this value. Maybe this will work. I'm not sure what this looks like. Value int. So I guess you're setting the value here, but for maybe just white in general. Again, it's all pretty new. And so far I've gotten it to work with opacity and with alpha. I guess I could have just undone what I did there. But yeah, so that's Dart stuff. It's really, or Dart Flutter rather. It's a lot of classing, and so this is the image. I was trying to just set a background image, but had some difficulty with figuring that out. So I had to say that the child is the appropriate one that we're using in this case. It's the footer, and I figured this out because that was what the example called for. It said it wants a grid tile object for the item builder for the scaffold body. And then once I saw what this type of element was, kind of played with it a little bit, put it in a header, put it in a footer, tried to edit the text. This part was challenging, to be honest. I mean, I could have just started with the text, but I thought, okay, well, I need to format this text. So there's a rich text option, and the rich text option has children instead of a child, and the children, I could probably pull it up to be more accurate, but the children have to be a certain inline span or something like that, if I remember correctly. And a text element is not an inline span, but a text span is an inline span or something like that. Like, oh man, it was just a mess of it's so circular, right? And this text span has children, or it has a child that is the text. So no, yeah, look, that it is children. So it has children that are a list of inline spans, and it just felt really circular, right? Like I'm making this rich text thing, and then the rich text thing for the children has a list of text spans, and the text spans eventually have children that are just text. And all I'm trying to do is put in one variable of text on top of this image, and trying to set the image as like the rich text background. That was just a mess. Like, I don't know. To me, in my mind, if I'm doing CSS, I could have a div and I could say the background is this, and I want this text, and I, can control where that goes through the CSS. But within the space of that div, giving it a defined width and height and all that sort of thing. But yeah, so that was yesterday. Just all of it. Pretty much the few hours I had available to spend with the task was getting it to that point. You know what? I say that. I also went through and checked my Flutter Doctor. So if I want to stop that was the product being run. My Flutter Doctor was showing 2 yellow checks, and it was kind of confusing to me because there were red checks underneath the yellow, and so it was for the tool chain. I was missing one of the options, and if I remember correctly, this one, I think this wanted something from, I think it was VS Code or Visual Studio for Windows, right? So Visual Studios was able to add some of the options it wanted. I can go continue without code, and I think it's under Tools, SDK. Something in the SDK that it didn't have that it was looking for. And now I don't see where it was that I might have been in options. I don't think so. It's somewhere in here. I'd like to be able to show you, but it'd probably be faster just look it up at this point. This tool also updated on me, so I'm not quite sure. Right, so the Visual Studio Code installer was one of the other things. This, I think it was under here, had a yellow check. Now I had Visual Studio installed previously. It wanted, the second one it wanted was under C++, this desktop development with C++, and it needed this right here. Now I already had it installed, so I don't know. I went ahead and unchecked it and checked it and told it to update, and I think maybe it was probably my VS Code was out of date. Is really what it amounted to. So even though it had stuff, there was like some yellow check followed by red underneath it in the Doctor. Point is, I spent some time doing that. It took a while to update. So here we are. I'm not sure exactly what I edited there, so I'm going to just get that out of here. Home screen. Now, one of the other things that's happening is that this fetch from the API that's occurring, it is getting the correct data, but when it goes to here, I believe because the amount of the fetching on this URL is hitting whatever domain this is from to get all these network resources, some of them are being blocked, especially when I run through Google. And so we do that with Flutter run D, and we're going to say Chrome, rather Chrome, not Google. And I may have to cut this short because my son is up and he was exhausted. I gave him a bottle. He's in his crib, but he's at least not upset at the moment. We'll see how long we last. That's kind of how it goes with a 1-year-old. You just get the time where you can, as long as they're okay. You spend the rest of the day with them, so he's definitely not neglecting him. And my wife works from home too, so there's little to no chance of just ignoring him for any length of time, unless he's trying to sleep or ignoring it. And having a little quiet time, that's not bad either. So yeah, see, I added the spacing here. This actually, none of this matters. This was playing around with it. This is for when the snapshot does not have data. So this is like a preload state, and I actually need to go into the assignment and recall what it is they want you to do in these cases, because there is something. But here it is in Chrome. As you can see, most of the images don't. I say most. It's a large portion of the images just don't show up for whatever reason. That is a scary face right there. That's quite the picture. So then we hit this range outside of the range, and I'm not sure why this is happening. Right? This is all pretty new, so I would assume that this would have collected data to a point, and the future is that data. Now, why this indexing continues beyond that, I really don't know. I think it goes up to like 130 something. 100. Okay, no, I'm wrong. I have no idea how far it actually continues, and there's no scroll bar, which makes this really, really frustrating. Oh, you know what? It could just be my window size. That's my width that's changing those images that we were seeing up there. And if I resize my window, that's probably all it is to match closer what they have. So the fit width, this box fit width is, I'm 99% sure that's what they're using, where it cuts off a portion of the image to fit the width. Okay, well, I've honestly no idea where this stops or why it just continues. So I mean, we can try and come up with a controls the layout of the children within the grid view. Main access extent, possibly. All the arguments must not be null, and arguments must not be negative. Okay, so let's try that. We'll say main access extent. We'll just call it 2. So I would expect this to result in. Oh, did I close that window? That was silly of me if I did. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I guess it just keeps loading for as long as I'm scrolling. Index should be less than 62. Index out of range. Yeah, well, I see that. So why would it continue to present again? Okay, so maybe the main access range is what I need to, and I don't know if I can capture that. I guess I don't know what, I mean, I still don't know technically what the context, I mean, in React, the React context is a set of variables that are like the properties of a div. You can pass these variables down, so maybe that's probably part of what's involved here. So let's think. So it should be, this will probably end up being like snapshot dot length, I would believe, and that way this snapshot data index is never exceeded. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's what that should probably be. Wow, why is it already down here? Okay, so clearly that's something to do with the height, this main extent. So that is not at all what we want. Oh yeah, and then I have to hit R, I think, to restart. There we go, that's better. And I think, you know what, I'm gonna cancel this. I'm gonna load it in Windows. Windows tends to load more of the content. So Flutter run D Windows. Now if you just run Flutter run, you get the option, you have to pick which one, but with the D flag I think you designate which thing it's loading on. So there it is. So I wish that I knew how to tell it to stop building at a certain context. And this is with the grid view builder. So let's see. Yeah, and so you get these first few. And let's try resizing it. Let's see. No, it actually does not. Now in the example they gave, her eye, you can see her eyes and a little bit more here, and this is, but it's pretty darn close. Anyway, I didn't know if the presentation of the content, I mean the text is obviously shrinking or growing to fill the div, but, or whatever it's called, the container in this case. Let's see. So the builder is this. Scroll controller, int item count. Okay, let's give it an item count value. Grid builder. Let's just throw grid delegate item builder and throw it under. Golly, these are helpful, but also I'm not used to it yet, so it's a little distracting. Okay, that's the end of the grid tile, but it's technically the item builder. I wish I could have it change there to that. What was it? Item count. We're gonna say snapshot data length. And what's wrong here? The number of objects in this list. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. So what is this? Int question mark. Int get length. Do I need to? Okay, I think it's this. Possibly. Nope. Is it because it's optional maybe? The property length can't be unconditionally accessed because the receiver can be null. Yeah, question mark. That's what I thought. That's what I was afraid. Let's see what happens there. Okay, and now we'll rerun it. Now something's also happening in, I think, somewhere else. Like there was a, or maybe not. I don't know. I remember when I first loaded this, there was a build list somewhere. Oh, what is this error? Media. Yeah, see, I think it failed to load this at some point. Now, what happened when I clicked there? Oh, there is a scroll bar over here. Okay, great. Yeah, those are all the errors. Let's see if we can get down to the bottom. Hey, there we go, right? Okay, so if we'll say plus 2. And we should have, oh, come on, really? Can be, okay, whatever. All right, yeah, no, we know that there's going to be data here because we're in a has data check. So we can say, get out of here, do the thing. And we get 2 that are out of range. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. So let's go check and see what else we needed to do in our project. 5 days, 5 days, 8. Okay, good. So I got 8 days to get. I'm in the first part. Oof, it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough. Okay, and yeah, you can see how the eyes a little up here. It seemed like they squished the image just a hair, but whatever. Okay, wait, it's up here. If the snapshot contains data, then we're doing this, which is what we're doing. Right? If it has data, the snapshot returns an error, center widget with text error. So how do I know if the snapshot has an error? If snapshot is still loading, center widget with circular progress indicator. Okay, so that seems pretty simple. That is the not if. So let's find where our closing if is here. That's what this was, but now instead of all this, we're just gonna have a center div. Return a center with a child. That is, what was it? Circular progress indicator. Why? Okay, so I'm checking in the assignment to see if this isn't a built-in, why the hell? Circular progress isn't defined for the type home screen. Okay, so where is this? Where does this live? Let's see. Flutter use. So okay. So I probably just needed to capitalize it. I should have seen that in the way that the thing was. Is anything required? I see nothing required. Center. Now why is this having a fit? Does this need a... that happened to me before. Like I forgot a semicolon on the above statement and it had a fit. Creates a widget that centers its child for a const with constant constructors. Okay, so I think I have to say const. There we go. I've seen that too now. So, you know, you learn as you go. That's where we're at. Oh, Cisco is definitely... Yeah, okay, he's crying. I gotta go get him. But we're gonna take a look at this real fast. I don't know how to force it to wait on the fetch. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go get him. I just want to see if this circular thing loads. Because I have seen it flash with the yellow grid briefly. So we should just see a real brief circle in the middle once this... Come on, baby. There it is. I'm assuming that's it right there. Yeah, okay. Beautiful. All right, so there's that. And then the next part is... Oh, what was the other one? Throw in a center widget with a text error. Returns an error. So when the snapshot returns an error. So we'll figure that out. And I'll be back as soon as I can. Oh, till then, take care.